Bright Tuty. Every student matters.
Hello students. So let's talk about our next topic here, that is role of an ordinary citizen in a democracy. Right? So before this students, we were talking about political reforms. And in this part, you have learnt about 4 main guidelines or measures through which political reforms can be brought about in our country, India. Right? So if I recall, we talked about the legal means, we talked about the consideration of all pros and cons, then we talked about improving the quality of political participation, and at last but not the least, we talked about implementation of these political reforms, right? So here students, whenever we are talking about political reforms, whenever we are talking about democracy, we are seeing that there is a common term being used again and again, that is public participation, right? So at grassroots level, how can we strengthen our democracy? We can strengthen our democracy by involving more and more people. Now you already have learned about the importance of education, right? Why people should be literate, and not only literate, they should be educated enough in order to create their opinions, in order to transmit their opinions and criticize the ideas, right? So we call them as the group of intellectuals, correct students? So here, apart from that topic, since we are talking about public participation, so it is important for us to understand the role of ordinary citizen in this. Am I correct or not? Yes, we have to understand why ordinary citizens are important and what are their roles in order to strengthen the democracy that we are talking about time and again here. So the first point or the first role of an ordinary citizen is that they should be interested in the affairs of the nation. Yes, definitely the first and the foremost point for any ordinary citizen of our country. So student, what happens here? We see that ordinary citizens, they are involved in their own affairs, right? Their own private life, their personal life, professional life, and so on. So people at first, they always think about themselves, how they can improve themselves, how they can work upon themselves, how they can, right? Comparing themselves with other individuals here. But what happens? In this process, we see that people become selfish enough to just think about themselves, their own very personal affairs. But they are not thinking about the nation as a whole in this process, right? So here, the first role of individuals, of ordinary citizens should be that they should be interested in the affairs of the nation. They should have consideration for other people. Now here we see that there is a Greek statesman, very popular Greek statesman, whose name is Pericles, who said that a person, so Pericles here, he said that a person who minds his own business and has no interest in politics at all has no business at all. So what are we understanding with this statement here? We understand that a person who is only involved in his personal business and is not taking any heed of the politics that is happening around him, he has no business at all. It means that a person should not only think about himself, but he should think about the affairs, the activities that is happening, going on around in our nation. That is how he can get politically aware about a lot of situations, and he can create his own opinions, right? And then he can pass on to his fellow members, and apart from that, he can also get the ability to criticize those ideas or those opinions, right? And also they should have consideration for other people. Now what do we understand by this consideration of other people? So in our society, we see that people, they tend to care about themselves more than caring about the other fellow beings, right? So here we have to live together. We have to promote unity. We have to work on the development of our country. Now I'm repeating the keywords again and again, students, so that whenever you are writing these answers, you must know what are the points that you have to include here. Okay? So consideration for other human beings is also important, right? For any ordinary citizen in a democracy. Now, active interest in public affairs and give every cooperation to the government. Here again, one more example that I would like to repeat is about the growing disenchantment. Again, we already have discussed about it, right? Of people in politics. And the best example that shows this point is the voter turnout. So this is an important point. Okay. So voter turnout, again, we see that it has been lowering, and it shows that people are not taking active interest in politics, and somehow the political participation is now dwindling, right? Apart from this, what is the role of ordinary citizen here? That they should take active interest in public affairs and give every cooperation to the government. So how should an ideal democracy work? Here, you can simply say that active citizens should work in hand with the government, right? That is how an ideal democracy can work. Yes. So they should have only active interest in public affairs. Now, ordinary citizens, when they're having an active interest in public affairs, it means that they are participating. It means that they are strengthening democracy in our country, right? And also the government will have the ability, and also government would like to work in the favor of common people, right? And also they can always check the laws passed by the government. They can correct the government in that sense that the laws that have been passed is not in the favor of people. That is how the government and active citizens can work together hand in hand, correct? So this is the role of an ordinary citizen. An ordinary citizen can also help democracy by getting rid of fundamentalism arising out of caste, creed and religion. Yes, students, we have learnt about the inequalities that exists in our society, that exists in our democracy, right? So here we see that an ordinary citizen, they can help a democracy by getting rid of fundamentalism arising out of caste, right? The inequalities that are arising out of caste, creed and religion, the differences that exist in our society. Now what we have to do? We have to get rid, we have to eradicate, completely remove it from our society. Then only people can live happily together, then only they can live in unity, and then only despite any differences, right? In fact, in our society, differences will exist, right? Even if we are talking about 10 years from now, differences, they are going to exist in our society. But coming out of those differences is a big thing. Getting rid of those minute differences is a big thing. So that is the role of ordinary citizens, to come together, to work as single community and to participate in democracy, right? Get rid of intolerance, fanaticism and inhuman treatment. Yes, now in our society, you must have heard this term that has been used by many political parties, many people who are getting socially aware that our society today is becoming much and much more intolerant about a lot of things, right? So the intolerance that we are talking about, students, it sometimes lead to violence. It sometimes lead to chaos. It sometimes lead to disturbance, right? Chaos and disturbance. So is it good for a society that wants to live peacefully? No, students. So therefore, it is important for us to get rid of these intolerance, the inhuman treatment that can be towards any person, be a man, be a woman, children, anyone. So all these things have to be got ridden off here. Now good citizens, they also can be created by citizens themselves. Now it is only our duty that we can create good citizens around us. How? By following all these policies, all these rules here. Right, students? These are some of the common rules that an ordinary citizen can abide to. And therefore, it is only in our hands to inculcate all these important points in our mind. And not only inculcate it, but also follow it now and then. Right? So, it is in our hands to create good citizens here. Right? Acts of parliament cannot create a healthy and successful democracy. Definitely, students. Here we see that parliament or the parties involved here, they can pass as many laws, as many acts that they want. But it is the people who have to follow these acts, right? We have already learnt about it in political reforms. So these acts of parliament, they cannot merely create a healthy and successful democracy. It is only the support of common citizens, the ordinary citizens, that can make a healthy and successful democracy. Once they start following all these acts that have been passed, they can start questioning the acts that is not good or that is violating their basic rights. They start criticizing the ideas of the government wherever needed. Not all the time, but wherever needed. This is how we can create a good democracy, an ideal democracy that we can live in. So these are some of the important points here. So by summarizing all these points, what we understand? So the active and participative citizen, what are the major roles here? Let us try to summarize it here in 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 points. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Okay. So the first one is aware of their rights. Definitely they should be aware of their rights so that they can question the government. They can also see if they are being violated of their basic rights or not. Willing to perform a citizen's duties. Yes. What are the basic duties of citizens? Definitely to preserve the unity and also to help in the overall development of our country. Yes. So these are some of the basic duties that should be performed by every citizen living in our country. Active interest in the affairs of the country. Yes, only if the person is politically, socially, economically aware of all the things that is happening around, they can become an active participant in the country. Well-informed and educated. We have learned about well-informed and being educated, how education plays a major role. It creates awareness. It also creates intellectuals, right? It gives them the whole idea to create new thoughts, new opinions, to transmit them and also to criticize those ideas or opinions. So these are some of the important points that you have to keep in mind here. The last but not the least here is maintain law and order. Definitely. Yes, students, it is only by maintaining law and order these active participants or citizens, they can work around with the government, right? Not by creating any chaos or doing any violent activities. They are only going to stand against the government, and that is not going to go by the rule of nature here, right? They have to work according to the law and order. They have to maintain the law and order and peacefully work with the government. So these are some of the important points that we have to keep in mind here. Now, coming to the question section here. The question here says, mention 4 duties of an active and participatory citizen. Now, here you have read about all these pointers. Now, you have to mention 4 points from here, that is, being aware of their own rights. This is the first point that we can mention. Willing to perform a citizen's duties. This is the second point that we can mention. Active interest in the affairs of the country. Third role that they should inherit in themselves. Well-informed and being educated. This is the fourth point that can be mentioned from this question. So this is how you have to answer this question. The next question is, describe the role of citizens in a democracy. Now, right now we have learned about the role of ordinary citizen only. So the first point that we learnt about the citizens is that they should participate in the national affairs and not only in their own affairs, own business or own personal affairs, whatever we can write here. Right? This is the first point that we talked about. Active citizens. Now you can add a lot of points that we have mentioned here. You have to just explain these points. I am giving you some important pointers that you should mention. Should work with the government hand in hand, right, in order to strengthen the democracy, right? Then we also talked about that the ordinary citizen should have consideration for other people as well. You can explain this point as well. Getting rid of the fundamentalism of caste, creed and religion, right? In order to get strengthen the democracy or to live in a good democracy, ideal democracy, that is the main point that you can mention here. Again, acts of parliament, that is not suffice, right? We also learned about this. You can mention that role of individuals, of citizens is really important here, who should try to inculcate all the acts that have been passed, and also they can question wherever needed. To whom? To the government. So this is how you are going to answer these two questions here. Okay? Thank you.